Hey everyone, welcome back. Today is going to be a little bit different. I wanted to pull some video clips from Tyler Henry and the Long Island medium, Teresa. I think that there are some pieces that they give in their interviews where I think they're like some heavy duty stuff that it's worth to uh, add on. So enjoy. Here's the first clip, and see you in a second.
So for me, sensing and feeling spirit is normal. I don't know any different. And it usually comes out of nowhere. I could just be in a store or just having a conversation with someone. And it just happens. Like I always say, I wish it was something like really cool that I could tell you that happens before, but it just literally happens.
I'm sorry for acknowledging something so personal, but she told me that she has the child with her, so who lost the child? Because I heard I gave my life for my sister.
I start to sense and feel things. I start to sense and feel maybe the way somebody died, a bond and relationship of what soul is present, like if there's a father energy present or if there's a brother energy present.
Okay, so I love that she says that, it comes out of nowhere because for me, it's true. Like, you could be having a conversation with someone, you could be out and about, and you just start getting these. For me, I start getting these feelings. And I have to always play this game of what am I feeling? What is it attached to? And sometimes if I don't do, uh, set boundaries on, you know, how open I am. And if I were to go into a situation like the grocery store or the mall or anything where there's a large crowd of people, it can be overwhelming because all I'm doing is just paying attention to my feelings, and also I might be tuning into other people's feelings, or I could be tuning into anything, really. Um, but one of the things that, it's a unique position to be in because when you start delivering messages or you start, yeah, delivering messages, you are holding space for these people. And the things that start coming up for me, I'm always getting information that is meant to be relayed that will help the person in terms of some type of progression, whether it be, healing or whether it be things that they are avoiding. Um, and sometimes it'll be like their spirit guides are, I've been trying to get them to pay attention to these signs, symbols, synchronicities, and they're seeing them, but they're not making the connection that they're supposed to do something with it. And they might try to tune into me and be like, you can hear me, deliver it. But when you're dealing with sensitive subjects, I've had to rely on watching how Teresa and Tyler kind of, in the beginning on how do you talk about things, because sometimes delivery is important. You need to have tact. You can't just word vomit, shit, because if you have one opportunity to deliver a message in the right way, there are no do-overs. And if you fuck it up, you could do more harm than good. And you have to, and when heavy stuff starts filtering through, it's like you can't, here you are, you can't like um when you open the floodgates, you can't just immediately shut it off and be like, I don't want to deal with that one. Like, you just deal with whatever comes through. And you have to learn how to finesse your words and say things that is just hard. So it's been beneficial for me to learn from other people and breaching sensitive subjects. And, you know, um, for me, I worked really hard at not channeling spirits, I try to tune into other people and read energy and what I can do to help their progression, and identifying things for them, giving them validation so they can start working on their own intuition. Because I've learned that there's a lot of people who have these experiences and they don't feel comfortable sharing these experiences, maybe because they don't have anyone who's open-minded enough, or maybe that they are scared to admit that their experiences are, or say out loud, um, that they're having these experiences, because then it just makes it more real. Um, but I, and I'll share later on why it is that I'm really hesitant about channeling spirits. I don't know if that's something that I will eventually move into as I begin to have my own development. Um, but you have to deal with other people's immense sadness, and you are having to tune into things that can be really heavy, and it's a lot to process other people's feelings, but feel it as your own. And it can take a toll on your physical body, not just your energy body, but your physical body as well. And I've been wiped out for 2-3 days, off of one person's energy. So that's that. Let's watch the next clip and talk more.
Catholic, huh?
Yes, I am.
Aren't what you do sort of defies the faith in a sense?
It is what it is. I found a way to be able to still honor my faith and know that I have a beautiful and amazing gift from God.
You often say, I want to get this right, that their loved one is safe and at peace with God. Is anyone not safe and not at peace with God? In other words, is there somebody God's kind of pissed at?
Well, spirits never said to me, Teresa, it's hot down here. So I'm going with that there is no hell. I don't know. But I've had seen other levels of where spirit will show me when we leave the physical world, our soul enters a level where we have to learn lessons. I will sense a soul, like it just happened on the show. I was reading a family that lost their daughter who was murdered by her boyfriend. The daughter was channeling. I could see the boyfriend, but I couldn't channel him. He was at a lower vibration that my soul, so when I said when I'm not allowed to, I could not lower my vibration enough to be able to channel him.
Okay, so after watching that, I kind of want to bring up like just a quick annoyance that I picked up. Larry is kind of being an asshole. Like, you can sense that he is not listening with an open mind and an open heart. And it's a really shitty thing to say to someone, oh, you're Catholic, right? Isn't what you're doing defying your faith? Like, we talked before a little bit about the importance of tact and having to talk about heavy things. And there's a way of saying things that is just kind of rude. Like, and you can sense that Teresa is on edge. And, I think she does a great job at pivoting and saying it is what it is. It is what it is. I can't change it, but I still believe, I still have my own faith, and I'm still practicing what I believe is the right thing to do, and I still lead my life as a good person, but there's no changing what this is. But more on that later. But I love that when she brings up that when we cross over about the life lessons, and I thought it was interesting that she used the term level. My understanding is that we kind of go into this place of review. When we cross over, we are greeted by our loved ones, by our guides, and we kind of go into this review area where we review our entire life, our life lessons, and we are able to see, the ripple effects of our choices, and in a way that we would have never been able to see while we were, here on Earth. And I think it's important to bring up even later on when she talks about her channeling someone, and also someone who, you know, committed a heinous act, and how she couldn't connect to him. And my understanding is that and we can talk about, you know, use Hitler, Dahmer, Manson as examples. You know, when you commit those types of atrocities, you know, you are not greeted by your loved ones. You know, when you cross over, you are immediately removed, and depending on the circumstance, sometimes you might have a choice and where you can be reincarnated immediately, but you might be reincarnated in a life where you are victimized in a way that you are, what is done to you is what you have done to others. And don't misconstrue that if you're experiencing something in your life that it's something like a past karmic debt. Each case is individual, and don't don't necessarily assume. But for them, they might have multiple lives where they are having to go through as their karmic debt. And if you're really bad, they get removed, and my understanding is that their energy gets reworked in some way. Um, because when we talk about, you know, the first law of thermodynamics is that energy can't be created or destroyed. It can only be transferred. And just in the same way, you know, souls just, you don't get to just erase a soul. It might be reworked in some way, but then there's still consequences for the choices that they've made. Um, yeah, I think let's watch the next one.
When did you know you had this gift?
Well, you know, I didn't call it a gift, but this really started
do
for
you call
me. An ability. I really view it as an ability. But for me, this started when I was 10 years old, and I grew up in a pretty conservative Christian household. We didn't talk about spirits or mediums or anything along those lines. And one night in April of 2006, I went to bed, and it was just like a normal night. But the thing is that I woke up before midnight, and when I woke up, I had this overwhelming knowingness that my grandmother was going to die. And I didn't have a doubt about it. It felt almost like a memory that wasn't mine, as if I was experiencing this knowingness, but I couldn't explain it. And so I went into the room to try to tell my mom of this, and I was upset and thinking, oh my God, I don't know why, I just feel like Grandma's gonna die. We need to say goodbye. So I was explaining this, my mom's phone rang. And when she picked up the phone, I remember she answered it. It was my dad on the other end, and he said, hey, Grandma just passed.
Was she sick?
She was. She had been
So,
ill.
not hard to think.
The timing was pretty specific. I think the timing and the fact that it was only seconds prior to the moments of her last living experiences was pretty keen.
Did it scare you?
It didn't scare me. I think it just validated that there was a connection between me and my grandma. But I didn't know what that was, and my family didn't either.
What is a clairvoyant medium?
I describe a clairvoyant medium as, well, two things. A clairvoyant is someone who receives information visually. So the idea being that a clairvoyant medium receives visions, symbols, points of reference that are images. But as a medium, my job is to act as a conduit between this realm and the next, and to deliver impressions that I pick up on that are messages and then get them validated.
I've talked to other mediums, Peter Hurkos being the most famous, I guess. Right. Famous. And he didn't like what he had.
Right.
He didn't like that he could sit with someone having dinner and know things about them.
Right.
He wished he didn't have it. Do you like having it?
I've grown to accept it, that it's something I can't change. And I like what I've been able to do with it. I like seeing people's responses and the healing and the comfort and the awareness. But there is a difficulty with it inherently that comes with it as a human being. And I have to lay my head on the pillow every single night, and my job never really ends. And so with that comes kind of an always...
You go a little nuts.
Right. It can be very overwhelming. And I have to kind of be able to separate myself and the information that comes through to me. And it's very easy, I think, to get lost in your identity when you're constantly picking up or constantly involved in other people's lives.
Okay, so one thing that kind of gave me validation, and I hope that it will give someone else validation somewhere, is that Tyler says that in another part of like that interview, he says that the experience that he had with his grandmother, in that knowing that she's crossing over, he says that that was kind of like a one-off experience, and that he's never had anything similar to that, and that he thinks that that was his own, just a unique experience due to his connection with his grandmother. And for there's something that I'll share later on that kind of messed me up, and why it is that I'm really hesitant to channel spirits. But there, sometimes you can have a one-off experience where it is just unique to that situation. And I think the important thing to remember is that each situation is unique to its own, and you just kind of have to learn to roll with the punches, and don't assume there might be similarities between two experiences, but they're not all the same. I think I just kind of resaid that in a different way, but it was an important lesson for me, because sometimes, because I have all the sensitivities, different ones can get flared up at different times, and there's always this level of kind of like uncertainty of, okay, what's happening, and what's happening. And I will, we can talk about Larry kind of being an asshole again, just in a different circumstance. You can see, him with his arm crossed and be like, oh, was grandma sick? Oh, so it wasn't hard to believe, and again, is it necessary? And while he might have, it might be a fair question, but it's the way of going about asking it that just comes across as just really closed off and rude. But I love that he asked Tyler, what is a clairvoyant medium? And I really love Tyler's answer, because it is all factual. Clairvoyance is about seeing, and they receive their information through symbols, visions, and points of reference through images. And 100%. And for me, it's just nice to hear other people talk about this stuff, because for a long time I had to sit with it by myself and being like, I didn't have anyone. I did have someone that I could talk to, but it's not normalized, and my mentor has a one perspective of it, and other people have just different ways and how their abilities work. And for me, while I have all of them, my big three is the clairsentient, which everything is based off of feeling. Claircognizant, it's, I get downloads of information, and what that can look like is that, say if I'm working with someone, I might get a prescription like of they need to do X, Y, and Z, and I don't know kind of where the information comes from. It just kind of gets downloaded to me, and here we are, with a plan of action. And clairaudient is another one that kind of works for me a lot, and I don't hear voices in the way that you hear me. And even, in the very, I don't know if it was the first clip or the second clip, where Teresa is saying, I heard that I gave my life for my sister. I don't hear voices. I might get like dialogue that goes through my head. And where she might be able to hear if it's a male or female, I feel whether or not it's a male or female energy, and then I get the dialogue that is separate. So those are two gifts that, like clairsentience and clairaudience, that are working together, but both of them are separate experiences in itself. And the one time that I did have, where I could hear, let me rephrase that. There's two experiences that I have as far as hearing voices. And one of them is more frequent in the sense of when I go to bed at night, when I lay my head on the pillow and there's that like short window of between, before you actually fall asleep, there are times that I can hear, it sounds like chatter, or not chatter, but a conversation that is happening in the other room. The best way I can describe it is it sounds like the TV is on. Um, and it sounds like two people who are having a conversation. It's not anything that is directed toward me. It sounds like something that I'm tuning into. Um, and it's faint enough that I can't hear what they're saying, but I can just hear the mumblings. But it is definitely like you can hear a reply back, like you can hear the back and forth. Which is also kind of why I sleep with the fan on, because with that white noise cancels that out, so I just don't hear it. The other one was a one-off experience, and this is actually what has made me close off into trying to channel spirits, because in my head I thought, because it happened so early on, when I was, hold on, this was probably like the catalyst of being like, I need to understand what's happening, because this whole experience just scared the shit out of me, and I need to figure out like what this is. Love that. But but what, I woke up in the middle of the night, and what happened is that I could feel my head. It felt like there was a beacon above my head, and I could feel it pulsating. And I could just feel this pulse. And I felt this barrier that was around my physical body, and I heard someone yelling at me. And it wasn't a good spirit. This was someone who was angry. I have no idea what triggered it. The interesting thing is that I felt safe and protected. When I felt this barrier that was around my body, I felt like, this energy couldn't get through it. I could hear it like loud as day, but clear as day, but it couldn't get through to me. And that is kind of what triggered, later on, of like, what is this? All of these experiences keep happening to me. What does it mean? And also, that is the real big blockage that I have about channeling, is that spirits, is because in my head I thought that if that is what it means to open yourself up, I don't want it. And again, I don't know if that's a direction that I might end up moving towards in another, time and place, but that is kind of what triggered that for me. So let's watch the next clip.
Steve's dad, when I was, my children, Darius and Austin, were like 1 and 4. He called me one day, and he had divorced. He was abusive, and a woman I was.
You're talking about the grandfather.
The grandfather.
Okay, because here's the thing. Okay, they go through, when you cross over. You go right or left. Okay, you go to lessons.
Right.
You go to a lesson plan. So spirits, when they pass, they have to go and be schooled on how to maneuver into this dimension. Big time validation. What happens is if they didn't learn in their hard life the lessons that they have to learn, then they have to continue to learn where they're at. And he is trying to make amends, and he may look at Darius and say, okay,
Darius looks similar to him.
I know, because remember I said they keep showing me that this is one of the sons looks like the grandfather.
Darius looks like his grandfather.
Okay, he does, but the grandfather hangs out with him because I think that he's one of, not one of his guides, but he's trying to learn his hard lessons with Darius. So he's trying to do right by him now. Because I'll tell you what, if you don't learn your lessons in this life, your mom's not coming back through. She's good. She's an angel. I feel like if you don't learn your lessons in this is the hard life here.
Right.
This is why when we're 80, we're still suffering. We're still.
That's interesting.
And they showed me it was Darius.
He
and
looks
they
like
showed me
right.
that. That's why I said, does he look like your dad? Because they didn't say father, they said grandfather.
Yes.
He's got Christian and he's got him. And I'll tell you something, don't be surprised if he just doesn't act like an old man sometimes. Because I feel like when Christian crossed over, I feel like Darius aged 10 years. 10 years.
Okay, with those clips, I have to say that those clips were videos that I recorded back from 2014. And I was helping my mom clear out some storages, and this cassette tape, fell out. And this is before, or this was like kind of around when things started like happening for me. And this cassette tape like fell out, and it was like there was something that was like calling me to it. And I'm like looking at it, I'm like, well, it's a cassette tape. I'm like, who the fuck has a cassette player? And I look like to the left, and then like 5 feet from me is like this old like boombox, and I was just kind of like, I guess I'm supposed to just listen to it. And there were some things that came out, and I don't know kind of what triggered it, but I had those videos saved in my email from all the way back in 2014, and something triggered that memory where I felt the need to add it, because you are hearing from another perspective, from someone else on how, life lessons, and how sometimes learning the ripple effects on the choices that we make, and how sometimes you might have ancestors who are living their lessons through you, not as a guide, not acting as one of your spirit guides, but trying to learn their own shit. And again, these are things that you don't need to hold space for. Energies like that, they can go off and learn their lesson their own way. And what I hope that piecing it all together, you can see how sometimes, even using my own personal experience as an example, you might have the universe that is trying to show you things and bring awareness. And I hope that if you are being drawn to what it is that I'm doing, that you continue to be open to your own signs, symbols, and synchronicities in your life. And I hope that you figure out how you can piece it together and how to learn from it, because whether or not you choose to believe in it doesn't mean that isn't like affecting you. But when you're open to the good stuff, there's a lot of really cool shit that can happen. So I hope this was fun. I hope this was interesting. To be continued. We'll talk again later. Have a good day. Bye.